What's going on, Wiz Nation? It's your main man, K Jose, and I'm back with another episode of DC Hoopla. How you guys feeling today? I know a lot of you guys are not too happy with that collapse against the Clippers, and with the Wizards playing against the Memphis Grizzlies, you probably really don't feel too confident about how we're going to play tonight. So there's quite a few things that I'm going to cover today. Before I even get started, I definitely want to send shout outs. I want to thank everybody for listening to DC Hoopla, for also following myself on State of the Wiz. Definitely follow my man Wiz Takes at Wizards Mafia on IG and Twitter. Different music, new logo. Hope you guys like the new logo. Just got it done. So I'm feeling pretty good right now as far as with the new logo and how things is going for DC Hoopla. So the Wiz had a collapse against the Clippers. Not going to spend too much time talking about that. Everybody and their mom was talking about it. But let's just say that it was not a game that this team should have lost. It was a game that they were beating them by 35 points, only to collapse and lose by 1 point. Since then, there's been a lot of chit chat. Players becoming available, players allegedly having their own agendas because of the fact that some of them are playing on a 1-year contract, which I knew that was going to be a problem. I believe I said that in one of the State of the Wizards episodes previously, that was going to be a problem. That was before the start of the season. And people are talking on Wizardsverse about Bradley Beal. Should we move on from Bradley Beal? So let's talk about these players that are supposedly having their own agendas because they're on 1-year deals. Now, this is coming from the face of the franchise. So who are these players that he was speaking of? Because this is what he said to Chris Miller. So we know that Montrezl Harrell is on a 1-year deal. We know that Thomas Bryant is on a 1-year deal. Raul Neto is on a 1-year deal. Rui Hachimura will be up for a qualifying offer or an extension. So he's somewhat playing on a 1-year deal. So these must be the players that Bradley Beal is talking about. But he forgot one particular player to mention, and that's himself. Everybody knows that he's going to opt out of the last year of his contract, which I believe that's going to pay him around about $35 million, with the expectations of him signing a 5-year deal, which would be a super duper max, paying him up to $240 million. Depending on the salary cap, it could go up as high as $245. This is his expectations, and he did not mention himself. So to me, I thought it was very disingenuous to indirectly talk about these said players because he didn't mention their names, but you can just go on hoopshype.com and actually look at the salary cap, or should I say look at the salaries and see which players that he's talking about. But he didn't mention himself. Another thing he said was he was irritated that he had to go back in that Clippers game. He felt that game should have been in the bag. Bruh, have you forgotten that you played a major part of that collapse? None of the young guys were at fault for that because he threw the bench under the bus. It wasn't the bench's fault, the reason why the team lost. It was the high-priced players. Beal, Dinwiddie, Kuzma, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, the vets, players who were over 26 years old. Those guys were the reason why we lost that game. So I thought Bill was actually being disingenuous. So now let's talk about the players that have become available for the trade deadline. Spencer Dinwiddie is now available. Montrezl Harrell has been made available. Aaron Holiday has been made available. And then yesterday I saw a report that everybody is available except for Bradley Beal. How in the hell can the whole team be made available except for the franchise player? Some people would say, well, why should the franchise player be made available? He's the most important player on this team. Is he really? There's enough data to show that this team is actually deep enough to win ball games without him. We've won ball games even when he played poor. We have a 6-2 record when he doesn't play. So how is he important? He's been on a tear the team down rampage the past few days, because what he's been doing in these interviews is he's been withholding himself of accountability. He's been placing blame on everybody else. There is no John Wall to point fingers at anymore. There is no Russell Westbrook to point fingers at anymore. Now, Bill, is just only you. But what you have done is you took that energy off of you and you place it on your teammates. I see where people are actually blaming Wes Unseld Jr., which now I'm going to start talking about Wes Unseld Jr. So Wes Unseld Jr. has been playing an 11-man rotation. A lot of people on Wizardsverse said he needs to cut down on his rotations. A lot of people was upset with some of his substitution patterns against the Clippers, felt that he went with a bad lineup, and entirely too long. They were upset that Daniel Gafford only got 12 minutes. Wes Unseld Jr. could be playing these guys due to the fact that maybe Tommy is telling him to do it. Maybe Ted is telling him to do it. I don't think we're factoring that in, that the folks upstairs could be the real reason why Wes Unseld Jr.'s rotations is all over the place. Now, I do agree, an 11-man rotation is not going to work. We have a lot of depth, but now it's starting to look like too much depth can be a problem. That's their old saying, less is more. So maybe some of these guys will be moved by the deadline, but is it really going to move the needle? For you guys who are hoping for Jeremy Grant to be coming here, it's not going to happen. If you saw his recent comments, he hasn't moved from wherever he goes. He wants to sign a $100 million deal for 4 years. He is not worth $100 million. So he's not coming here. We shouldn't mortgage the future to get Harvey Grant 2.0, because that's pretty much what Jeremy Grant is. Some of you guys will say, no, he's better than that. I don't see it. Go look at his numbers. He's just a slight bit better than his father, but he's nothing but Harvey Grant. His uncle, Horace Grant, is actually better than him. So I don't really see Jeremy Grant coming here. Some people will say, well, Sabonis. Well, what are you going to give up to get Sabonis? And the Pacers are asking for a nice piece for Sabonis. We don't really have what the Pacers want to give up Sabonis. Oh, well, let's give up Denny. Oh, yeah, that's right. Give up your best defender for another player who don't play damn defense. This team is not playing defense right now, and we're going to give up one of our best defenders, a 21-year-old, to get Sabonis. Now, Sabonis is a solid player, very good player, but he doesn't play any defense. And we're actually saying, let's give up one of our young players who we drafted to go get Sabonis. To me, it doesn't make any sense. Does it work? Is he a fit here? Have we even thought about that? How do you play Sabonis? Do you play him at the 5? Do you play him at the 4? Would he fit with Daniel Gafford? Could that clog up the paint if you got him and Daniel Gafford in the paint? Will that work? I don't know if that's going to work. So Sabonis is not coming here either. The best that we can do is maybe get somebody like a Robert Covington. And I know a lot of fans would not be happy getting somebody like Robert Covington because that will be a mid-level player. But guess what? So is Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant is a mid-level player who wants to get paid as if he's a second-tier player. Is Jeremy Grant a second-tier player? I would say absolutely not. He's probably more of a third-tier player because that's what his dad was, a third-tier player in the NBA. So if the Wizards really want to improve this roster, you got to make everybody available. Well, to be honest with you, let me change that because I don't think everybody should be available. Rui, Denny, Kisper, Gafford, and Isaiah Todd, those guys should be untouchable. The players that I did not mention, those guys should be. Let's keep it a buck. It was a failure to sign Spencer Dinwiddie. I knew that from the very beginning. You guys heard me talk about it on here. You guys heard me talk about it on State of the Wizards, that I was never sold on signing Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, Spencer Dinwiddie, I have no problem with him as a person, and I really don't have too much of a problem with him as a player. But I knew that Spencer Dinwiddie wasn't going to work here. DCAN knew that Spencer Dinwiddie wasn't going to work here. Remember, I did an episode asking, was it worth the trouble going after Spencer Dinwiddie? I mean, we executed a 5-team trade to get this guy because we didn't really have the money to sign him. And mind you, the franchise player was the main one who wanted him here. So I knew that that didn't work. Another thing, too, the Laker players that came over, they worked. They played a good part of why we started out 10-3, but then they started to show why the Lakers have always had some of these guys, with the exception of Montrezl Harrell, on the block. KCP and Kyle Kuzma has always been linked to the Wizards dating back to 2018. They've always been linked here. So the Lakers were never really sold on him pre-LeBron James. They were already talking about moving these guys. So now that they're here, I'm seeing people saying, oh, well, KCP needs to play less minutes. I don't like the fact that he's starting. You know, why is he dribbling the basketball? Everybody was on Team Kuz, but Kuzma is now starting to kind of fizzle a little bit. You know, and then Montrezl Harrell wants his touches, and he's not getting it, and he's been very vocal about it. He's definitely made available. He's probably going to be gone by the deadline. Some people will say, oh, well, you know, Tommy did a good job. He got rid of John Wall's contract, only in turn to get rid of Westbrook's contract to get these guys. Now we got cap flexibility. Well, the Lakers trade don't happen if Westbrook doesn't ask for it. So we can't give credit to Tommy Shepard for executing this trade. You got to give credit for Westbrook. Westbrook was the one who said he wanted to go to LA. And all we did was we finally grabbed these players that we were looking at 4 years ago. That's all we did. But if we really want to have cap flexibility, then you got to save yourself. You can't hand out 35% of your cap to one player who clearly is a number 2. I don't really want to make this be about Bill so much, but I have to state the facts. So shout out to Wizards Film Room, but they posed a very good question on Twitter. They said, how come teams who are looking at Bill are only looking at him to be a second or a third option? That's a very good question, because those teams only see him as such. Now, Bill says he wants to do it here. Okay. Do what? Win a championship? Because I haven't heard him say that. Bill is in a situation where he knows he can make all the money he wants here. And 2, Bill knows he can get these personal accolades here as well. See, I think Bill's vision is focused on, well, let me become a Hall of Fame player, even if I don't win a championship. He's playing for the Wizards, okay? The scoring leader for the Wizards right now, I believe it is, I want to say it's Elvin Hayes as the scoring leader for this franchise. The assist leader for the franchise is John Wall. So Bradley Beal is on a franchise where he knows he can just surpass Wizards greats, Bullets greats in scoring. Maybe in assists if he focuses on that. He just needs 5 years to do it. He can probably do it in less. If he goes out there and scores 30 points on a consistent basis, he can do that. And he sees that. I've always said that Bill is pretty much like a Carmelo type player. They both were picked third in the draft. Melo was actually the man in Denver, and he was the man in New York. But since he's left the Knicks, he's pretty much been a complimentary player throughout the league. And Bill has always been a complimentary player once he came in the league. I mean, once he came in the league, he pretty much was in John Wall's shadow. Ain't no pretty much about it. He definitely was in John Wall's shadow. And he got tired of being in John Wall's shadow, which is why John Wall is no longer here. But then he also saw himself starting to be in Russell Westbrook's shadow, and that was something I don't think he was looking forward to. So he has an opportunity to make the most money that any Bullet/Wizards player has ever made in franchise history. And he also has an opportunity to create and break records as a Wizard. And if it comes at the expense of him never winning a championship, he is okay with that. Now, some people are saying that in these interviews, he's saying certain things to try to prevent from signing the max deal. I don't know if I can believe that or not. But what I will say is there's a little bit of stubbornness coming from him, and there's definitely stubbornness coming from the organization. Kudos to David Aldridge in the article that he wrote during the summer. He said it best. Somebody has to be the bad guy between both of these parties. And that's what we're dealing with. The organization don't want to tell him that they're ready to move on, and Bradley Beal doesn't want to ask for a trade. So what they're hoping for is organically this divorce will happen. Well, in reality, if you want a divorce, somebody's got to put the papers in to get a divorce, right? Somebody's got to ask for it. It's just not going to automatically happen on its own. Somebody got to say something. So if these two parties want to part ways, one of them has to be man enough to come out and say, let's part ways. Now, here's what I do believe. I don't believe Tommy Shepard really wants to mortgage the future to go out there and get said player to try to win a championship. Because let's say if he does that and it doesn't work, and then you decide that, okay, well, we now have to have a divorce. The franchise have just set themselves back a few years because you mortgaged the future. The Wizards can't trade a first-round pick until 2028. That's the first-round pick they can actually trade. The only way the Wizards are going to be able to trade a draft pick is they got to remove restrictions. Now, they can do it on draft night, that if they draft a player and trade the rights to that player to another team, they can do that. Is that a possibility they may do that this upcoming draft? Maybe. But right now, the Wizards are currently sitting ninth, if I'm correct, far as in the lottery. If the draft started today, we would be picking ninth. A lot of people don't like when we pick ninth because they're upset with Rui and they're upset with Denny, but those guys haven't had the opportunity to show and prove what they can do. I know Ted Leonsis said that we'll never tank this, that, and the third, but it's probably going to end up happening organically because these next 6 games that we have, they're against teams that's way above 500. And this team is not ready. If the coach has the team sitting there looking at the Clippers game, that doesn't sit well with me. If they got to watch that Clippers game, because you're not playing the Clippers tonight. So having them watch that Clippers game, and I know what that is about to get them to understand where they made their mistakes, but it's kind of irrelevant now. You're playing against a red hot Memphis Grizzlies with a young Ja Morant who's ready to play. I know what you guys are going to say. Well, we beat them earlier this season. Okay, well, we're playing the different Memphis Grizzlies compared to what we played earlier this season. This team at that time was playing defense. We're not playing defense now. So I don't expect the Memphis Grizzlies to look the way they did earlier in the season. Then we played the Milwaukee Bucks on Tuesday. Yes, I know we beat the Milwaukee Bucks, but the Milwaukee Bucks were missing players. They're not missing those players, and the Milwaukee Bucks are not behind us in the standings anymore either. And they're the defending champs. Then, right after that, we play a back-to-back. We're playing against the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, on MLK Day, we beat the crap out of them, but Philly is actually playing a lot better too. They're a playoff team. We probably caught them at a day where they weren't their best, and we're playing them in Philadelphia. I'm pretty sure, based off of what the Philadelphia fans was saying to Carmelo Anthony, I'm sure there's going to be some hecklers there as well. I'm sure there's going to be some Philly fans telling Bradley Beal, you need to come here. Which leads me to this last point, because I'm not going to stay on here too long. With Philadelphia, look, a lot of people don't want Simmons. Oh, he's a quitter. Oh, he can't shoot. Who on this team can shoot right now? Who can shoot on the Washington Wizards right now? Where's our shooters? Bradley Beal used to be a pretty good three-point shooter, but his three-point percentage has dropped within the last several seasons, at least the last 5 seasons. Ben Simmons made third All-NBA. Ben Simmons is an All-NBA defender. He can defend at the perimeter, something that we don't do. He can pass the ball. We don't currently have a point guard that can actually dish the ball out. And Ben Simmons, you're talking about Ben Simmons with a Denny when you got 2 of your best perimeter defenders? Come on, are you kidding me? And we're worrying about shooting? Plus, Ben Simmons' contract will be almost $100 million cheaper than what Bradley Beal is getting ready to make. And we're upset because he can't shoot? And we're talking about he's quitting on his team? I mean, he doesn't want to play in Philly. At least I give him credit for that. At least he's saying he don't want to play there. I really wish Bill would say he don't want to play here. So I see an opportunity for the Wizards to get better. You got a piece to get Ben Simmons, and you ain't got to give up a draft pick. All you got to do is just give up your star player. Again, Bill is nothing but a second or third option on a contending team. Why are we treating him like he's LeBron James when he is far from that? So tonight, we're playing against the Memphis Grizzlies. Do I expect us to win? No, I actually do not. We don't play very well on the road. And again, we don't have an answer for Ja Morant. Who's going to take on that option? Who's going to take on that job? It's most likely going to be KCP, but are we going to really sit there and believe that KCP is going to be able to stay in front of Ja Morant? No. Is Spencer Dinwiddie going to be able to stay in front of him? No. Is Bradley Beal going to be able to do it? No. There's nobody's going to be able to stay in front of him. There may be times when Denny is out there, and he's going to probably play the most defense on Ja Morant compared to anybody else on this team. Some people would say, well, put Aaron Holiday on him. Aaron Holiday is undersized. I don't see him stopping Ja Morant. Desmond Baines. I mean, he's a solid player. Now, I think Dillon Brooks is still hurt. And I remember last season, Dillon Brooks played the best defense on Bradley Beal. So Beal won't have to worry about him if he's still hurt. But if Dillon Brooks is actually healthy, that is a player that gives Bradley Beal fits. The Memphis Grizzlies, I have them beating us tonight. And they will be 3 games below 500. And it's very critical for us because tonight, the Celtics, they play against the Lakers, I believe. No, it's the Hawks. I'm sorry. The Hawks are playing against the Lakers. And the Hawks, the Wizards and the Hawks right now are actually tied for 10th in the East. They're tied. Now, if the Hawks beat the Lakers, because the Lakers are so mediocre, if they beat the Lakers, the Hawks will actually leapfrog us and we'll fall down. So tonight's game is very important for the Wizards as well as for the Hawks because one of those teams is either going to stay in the same spot or one team is going to actually, or the other team, which will be the Hawks, will actually get a chance to leapfrog. So be on the lookout for another episode of State of the Wizards. Possibly will be one tomorrow. Definitely wanted to say I appreciate you guys for coming out, listening to my podcast. I will make sure I have more episodes. Eventually, I will start talking Mystics as we get closer and closer to the WNBA draft. Again, the Mystics have the number 1 pick. I don't know if they're going to keep it or if they're going to actually trade it. They may trade it for a player, but I think they should keep it. But eventually, I will come on here and provide some Mystics content. I definitely want to say you guys have a good one. Stay safe.